Hello folks, next up for rigging on this character is going to be the spine. And we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're just going to do an FK spine, very similar to how we have our arm set up with the FK setup, right? So each of these controls are parented to each other, and then we have these parented constrained to the joints. So let's first create the controls, and then we'll get all those parented up. So I'm going to just go with NURBS circles. And I'm going to hide my geometry and then snap this. First off, let's go ahead and create us a root control. So this is going to be at the base of our spine, and this is going to control the base of the spine. And eventually, we're going to connect up these hips to the base of the spine. But we'll kind of circle back to that when we go to connect the rig together. So we've got a root control. I'm now going to create some spine controls, and I really want 3 more. So 2 for the midsection and 1 for the upper torso, because that's the really stiff part. If you kind of move and bend your spine, that upper torso kind of stays in a similar spot. So let's go ahead and create these. I'm going to duplicate this NURBS circle and snap it up. I think with my rig, though, I'm going to skip this joint and just go, snap it up to that next joint above it. And I'm literally just holding V and snapping it to these joints. So I'm going to skip one. For you, you may not need to skip one. Just kind of take a look at your character and see where you want to be able to twist and rotate the spine. Let's duplicate this again. I'm going to go up here 1 more level. There we go. And I think these 2 controls will be for my kind of lower and mid spine. And that's okay, like lower and mid torso, I guess I should say. And notice how they're offset, like to the back. That's okay. That's fine. We're snapping these to the spine, which is offset of our character. We could do that. Go to the control vertices here in just a second and fix that up. But let's snap this last one. I believe I'll just go up 1 more joint right there, and that'll be my chest control. And I really don't need to kind of have a control here because our chest really doesn't break there to kind of rotate. Yeah, cool. So now it's just going through and getting these lined up. Let's start with this second NURBS curve. I'll isolate, and go to control vertices. That way then I can unisolate, get these shaped around my character's torso. Carrying on, we'll do the same thing for the second one. Just shaping these up to be a little bit closer to my torso. Keep in mind, I don't want to go inside because then I can't select it as an animator when we go to animate this later on. Whoops. There's that last one. Couldn't quite see it. There it is. Isolating it, going to control vertices and pulling it forward. Now this one, instead of just kind of leaving it like that, I'm going to shape this one up a little bit differently. So I'm going to grab the outer, keep grabbing the other, let's just isolate this again. I want to grab these outer ones, and we can turn soft select on for this as well. And I can pull these up to kind of go over the shoulder here, and still have these first controls to be on the outer part of the chest. But just want to make sure this kind of conforms to my character. Not perfectly, not too close because we don't want it to intersect. Rotating it out. And when I go to rotate this, I don't want to rotate left or right. I'm just going to rotate it back with that soft select enabled. That way it can kind of just pull those control vertices back a little bit. I'll do the same thing here. And then I'll pull both of these down a bit. Maybe even try scaling them out. Yeah, there we go. I like that. And really that part is kind of up to you on how you want to shape it, visually, how you want it. Because again, this is going to pivot off of that joint, right? Because I didn't move everything. I just went to the control vertices and reshaped it. It's still going to pivot off of that joint, and it's going to control that joint. So that is exactly what we want. Let us now move forward. I want to do the same thing for the root, actually. I'm going to go to Control Vertex and just give it a little bit more. I'll turn Soft Select off. I'm selecting every other Control Vertex here and just kind of giving it a little bit of a wavy form to it. And the reason being is I just like to have that root be a little unique. Now it's too low, so I'm going to go back to Control Vertex, isolate it. So I'm going to select all of those and scoot it back up and just kind of make sure that, you know, the center of this is, I'm only moving up, I'm not moving left or right. The center of this is kind of lined up with that root joint, the base of our spine. And then there we go. And then there, that's pretty distinctive look compared to the other spine controls that we currently have. Awesome. What do we need to do with these controls? We need to delete their history and freeze their transforms. These two buttons. Now, I will say, do not center their pivot. Just freeze the transforms and delete the history. And let's give them names. So this one is going to be root control. And then we're going to do that great thing that we've been doing. Give everything an offset group. Just trust me, it gives you, if you ever need to go back and fix something or add some extra functionality, it's just nice to have these offset groups. So I'm going to group it to itself and call that group root control underscore grp. And we need to make sure that pivot is the same pivot. So it needs to be at that, excuse me, it needs to be at that, the base of the spine. So if I center pivot, that gets it pretty close, but remember we can hit D and then snap it to vertices. Just not want to turn off geometry. Alt-2 is a keyboard shortcut for that. That way you can snap it specifically to that joint instead of vertices. We're going to do the same things for the rest of this. This is going to be spine, what we can call this, lower spine control. Group it to itself. Lower spine control underscore grp. And then same thing is we need to get that snapped to the same pivot as the same joint as our actual control itself. Same thing here. Upper spine control. This is not the group. That's all right. Got ahead of myself. Upper spine control underscore grp. And we need to snap that pivot. I'll start by centering the pivot. That's not correct though. It needs to be on that joint. So I will make sure to snap it to that joint. And finally, we need to do the same thing for our chest control. And group it to itself. Chest control underscore grp. And just to remind myself of which of these joints I snapped it to, I can, with the original actual NURB circle selected, select it, go to one of my manipulator tools, move, scale, or rotate, and see it's set to that joint. So I'll go back to that group, center the pivot just to get it close, and then we can hit D, V, and snap it there. Fantastic. So now it's just getting the parent constraints and the actual parenting for these controls squared away. So we're going to go down here to the bottom. I'm going to select the control. We're not going to constrain to those offset groups. We're just going to leave those for a rainy day. So I'm going to select the control, the base of the spine, constrain. I'm going to go into my option box just to make sure. I'm going to hit reset settings, make sure translate and rotate are both on. Translate we really won't use for this, but we'll leave it on because we can lock those controls elsewhere. So I'll hit apply. And now I can close this out. And if you didn't know or you couldn't remember, the G repeats the last action you've done in Maya. So now all I can do is select the control, the joint G, control, corresponding joint G. It's going to repeat that parent action. And finally, control, shift select the joint G. The thing is now, we're a little broke. Right, so when I go to move the root joint, doesn't quite work out. Everything doesn't move together. That's because none of these controls are grouped to each other. So I'm going to go to these controls, and remember the order of operations here is we need to have them parented to each other. And we got to use these offset groups properly. So we don't want to just parent to the offset groups. We want to parent, we're making sure, to the actual NURBS curves as well. So this, the chest control group, is going to be parented under this upper spine. So whenever this upper spine control moves, this this chest control moves with it. So I'm going to select the chest control group in the outliner, then shift select not the group for the upper spine, but the actual curve, and hit P. And this is the hierarchy we get. So when I select this upper spine, move it around, rotate it around, it rotates everything. And then if I can then further rotate the spine with the top control. Let's do that again. So I want to select the upper spine control group, shift select the lower spine control, not the group, hit P on the keyboard to parent those. We can see the hierarchy here. So now when I go to move the lower spine, all of those are parented together. And finally, this exact same method, selecting that lower spine control group, selecting that root control and parenting those together. That way now, when I select that root control, move it around, everything moves together. Our character obviously is still not moving with it because we've not bound anything, but we will get to there shortly. And that's the spine control in a nutshell. We'll come back to the clavicle as we connect everything up. Obviously, my character, I'm a poor student. I need to do my other side and get that squared away. I also need to do my facial expressions. But that is the spine. That's all I got for you there. Pretty straightforward, very similar to how we set up the arms, just slightly different on how to manipulate those controls to get a unique shape. All right, cool. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.